back to A Well-Designed Business. My name is Luann Nigara, and I'm so glad you found this podcast. Together with my husband Vince and our partner Bill, we have grown our company Window Works from the ground up. So I know and I understand the challenges you face in running your interior design business. I also know that your talent alone isn't enough to ensure your success. So on this podcast, we talk about strategies and practical steps to help you grow your business. But make no mistake about it, we have our share of fun here too, mixed in with those aha moments that I love so much. This isn't fluff. Nobody has time for that. Whether you are a new interior designer or a seasoned designer, I am here to help you create and to manage the kind of interior design firm that you dream of. It's straight talk and it's action. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi, welcome to A Well-Designed Business. If you've been listening to the podcast over the last couple of weeks in real time, then you already know today is a Flashback Friday episode. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, during this holiday season, we have been going back to the early days and grabbing a few shows that I know hold very valuable lessons and advice for us. Today, I'm bringing back a wonderful interview that I had in January of 2017 with the incredible Michelle Nussbaumer. Michelle is an internationally acclaimed interior designer, author, AD100 interior designer, and definitely a trailblazer. She's the queen of colorful patterns, and she is also the owner of Ceylon AC, a beautiful shop located in the Dallas Design District. Through Ceylon AC, Michelle and her team of visionaries are turning old world inspiration into modern, soulful interiors for youthful spirits. From antique textiles to contemporary touchtones, interior design at Ceylon AC is often a menagerie of pieces that together create a one-of-a-kind experience as unique as the individuals they are designed for. Michelle has a globetrotting lifestyle, which is no surprise at all. I mean, she's quite a very busy lady. And today we're going to learn how she copes with her crazy schedule and how she doesn't let it mess with her creative process. I'm excited to share this conversation with you. So let's get to it. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining me on A Well-Designed Business today.
Luann, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for including me.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm delighted that you accepted the invitation. Michelle, I'm a big admirer of yours. And it's not just because of your design and the career that you have. It's because your career encompasses so many platforms. And I happen to know that you also have a big family. You have 4 children and you have, 7 dogs?
Oh my gosh, let's not tell people.
And so what happens for me, Michelle, is that obviously when I look at your work and what you've created, I am in awe, honestly, at all the ways that you are creative and all the things that you produce. But when I think of it as a person, as a human being, as a wife and a mother and a business owner, I just feel like there are so many balls in the air over in your world. And
there really are.
Yes,
there really are.
Yes. So I sort of felt like maybe we need to help people understand how you get so much accomplished, because I can't even fathom that you don't have a structure, a system for each area of your life. I mean, I'm just making an assumption, but I have to believe, because here's the thing that I look at, Michelle. First of all, you're an accomplished interior designer. I mean, that right there is a full-time gig, especially at the level that you do it and the quality that you produce. And so then you design fabric and you design glassware and you design jewelry and you manage a showroom and you manage a warehouse. And then you just came out with this book this past fall. And I just think to myself, what happens when you wake up in the morning? Like, how do you know where to go and what you're doing?
You know what? It's crazy because with the book tour, it's literally one of those like bad movies where you're like, okay, it must be Tuesday. I'm in Chicago. So that has just been the thing that's almost thrown me over the edge, honestly. The book tour has really been so much fun. And I've met so many fabulous designers around the country. I got back this morning from Charleston, and that's been a lot of fun, but a lot of work too, which I didn't really realize probably. As far as the rest of my life, I have to say that I just really enjoy doing what I do. And my mind is super creative, so I probably have a little bit of ADD. So it all kind of comes together. I'm very good with sort of last minute everything,
Oh my
like
goodness.
somehow at that ninth hour, it all pulls itself together.
Okay. So, but give us a little bit of insight into the structure of your company. So do you have different divisions? Do you have different staff that are assisting you and working for you and helping you execute the interior design projects that are then a different crew that is at the showroom in Dallas? How does that work, Michelle? How do you organize
Yes, I
that?
do. I do, except my design office is actually in my showroom.
Hmm.
So, I have people that just do design, but having said that, I think we all wear so many hats here. And, since it is here and we're all together, sort of everyone knows a little bit of what's going on. So you can pick up the ball if someone, happens to be out or running an errand or doing an install. So in that way, it's really great that we're all here together. And so just it's sort of just all comes together in that way. Having said that, there are days that are more difficult, obviously, than others, but I have a very creative mind. So I honestly get sort of bored just doing one thing.
Mm.
So I love to, for me, like yesterday on the plane, I, will do sketches or drawings. Today on the plane, same thing. So, I just sort of, I'm not one of those people that likes to just sit around doing nothing.
Mm.
So I don't like an idle moment too much. So I'm always just designing in my head, I guess.
It's really pretty. I'm a busy person and I feel like I have a lot going on. But when I look at what you are doing, I'm just like, whoa. so
I
so
know, and
so
I just signed a licensing agreement for an art line, which I'm a painter also.
I
So I just
did
signed
know
a
that.
licensing agreement with Left Bank Art, which I'm really excited about because I love painting. And sometimes when I get in that mode, just days could go by where I could literally be painting and not eat. So
Wow.
I'm kind of excited about this. Yeah,
Okay,
it's
so
going to be a new thing
let's
I'm going to be
actually
doing.
talk about that for a second because I have to tell you, first of all, I'm interested to know about the licensing agreement and how that works. But like you just said, when you love to paint and you start to paint, you could get lost for days. So in the reality of Michelle's life, if you were to say, okay, I'm going to put aside on my calendar on Tuesday to go into the studio or wherever it is that you paint and start to paint, do you have the luxury of this was so great, I'm going to do it again Wednesday and Thursday too? Or it's like, got to put it aside because Wednesday, I have to meet with, the warehouse managers about shipments coming in from, wherever it is. How does that, because I have to say,
Yes,
how does that
things
work?
things definitely need things like that definitely need to be scheduled, but since it is part of my work, then I will schedule that and we will look at the schedule and say, okay, do you have client FaceTime on this day? Or are you meeting with the accountant on that day? So yes, there are times that I need to schedule just pretty much everything, to be honest,
And do you
especially
run
with the book.
right? And do you run your schedule in a way? Because I feel like most of the super producing successful people that I've met, whether in the industry or out of the industry, tend to have a structured schedule in that Monday is art day, Tuesday is fabric design day, Wednesday is jewelry day. But I feel like I'm just getting the sense that you're probably too creative to be locked down to, okay, on Tuesdays I
I
paint.
really, ca- I really can't do that. You're right.
Right. I
So
can't
what
even
I
see
do
it.
what I did have for a while is I had everything online and then connected to my iPhone. So Olivia, who's amazing, who runs my schedule, would send that to me, or Troy, who did it before her, and that was great. Except I just realized that I don't really like this electronic thing as much. So I sort of have a paper schedule that's printed out every day and updated, and sometimes emailed to me, but I really like to have it in hand unless I'm traveling. And I look at it that way, and it will be, because every day things change a little bit here or there.
Hmm.
And, but yes, it's hour by hour, honestly.
So you're not sitting down on, say, Sunday afternoon and looking at your week ahead and saying, I'm going to put time aside to design jewelry on Tuesday and time aside on Wednesday to do this. You sort of have client facing meetings and commitments like that. And then you grab your creative time, like you said, on the plane and things like that. Or do you also look and
But
structure that in?
I try to structure it in, but it doesn't always work out. And that would be the thing that sometimes gives if it needs to. Like today, I have an install for a client this afternoon, and she called and said, I really need you to be there at 3 if you can.
Mm.
And so, things kind of changed around a little bit. And also, I do have a showroom. Okay, so when I'm working with clients in the showroom and when I'm in town, obviously people really would rather work with me. I mean, I have an amazing team, but just, they like to have FaceTime with me telling them about the fabric or about wherever I bought things around the world. And so sometimes that also takes a bit of my day. And this morning, I worked with a lovely girl, client designer that bought a big fabric order, and we had to really go over the whole order. And I helped her sort of tweak it and add some other pieces. And there were some antique textiles thrown in. And so, I love that. And I
Mm.
love working with designers and talking about their projects and, being inspired by them as well. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So I'm a very creative person, and really every day can be different, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, I'm getting the gist of both sides of it. Part of me can really see, and that's why I wasn't surprised that you're not like, okay, Tuesday I paint. It's sort of like, wait, turn on the painting, inspiration. That's weird, right? How can that be? Or on Wednesday I design jewelry. It's like for a creative person, the inspiration hits in different ways at different times. But at the same time, I'm sitting here and acknowledging what a literally huge business that you're running, and that has to be done on a schedule. So I'm repeating myself, but it is because I can see. For me, I always see the platform, and I see that if somebody's designing jewelry and glassware and has a showroom and running, events in your showroom. I saw that you had an event with Jeffrey Weissman and Andrew Fisher. Even something like that, that doesn't just happen. You know what I mean? Like you just are like, hey,
No.
put it up Tuesday, open the door. And so I'm feeling like on one hand, there has to be tremendous structure to get all of this accomplished, but there is so much of it that is dependent on you to be the person to create these things, and creativity has to come when inspiration comes.
And that's so true, Luann. And I have to tell you, sometimes things just kind of evolve organically. And I do have these book signings and different events all the time. And we try to structure those in a way of when we know people are really going to be in town and other designers are here. So, and that involves me really calling a lot of friends. And so it's a lot of work, you're right.
Mm.
It's something that I think helps the business in many different ways. So people come to the showroom, you meet people from other areas or different people that maybe hadn't ever discovered your showroom or your own work or possibly your friend's work. So that really works out, and I enjoy doing that. But I have to say that my mind works, I am very structured in the fact that client jobs, I have to keep that super structured.
Right.
But the rest of the showroom and design, they sort of happen like if I'm in the showroom and I have a minute, I may go sit down in my office and do something personal or pick up, a pen and draw a chair out for a job, something like that.
Mm.
But really, I'm always busy and I'm always inspired by so many different things in life. So it's just, I'm never bored. I guess
Right.
that's the answer. And I think that when I just really had only design, I think I'd maybe get a little bored of that. I travel also a lot with my showroom,
Mm-hmm.
buying things around the world. Last year I went to Africa, and this year I'm going to India. I went maybe 4 times to Europe. So yeah, there's a lot of travel involved. And luckily I've had a good team. My daughter ran my showroom for the last 5 years, and that was
Oh,
really such a blessing. It's so fabulous for me because she's kind of the only person that's ever worked for me that can kind of be me.
right.
And so that was really great. And it was hard for me when she left, but she moved to London,
Mm.
and I'm really happy for her. But yeah, so and now my other daughter's here. She just moved back from Paris, and she's helping me as well. So, they grew up with me and they really get it.
Right.
So there's also that. And I think if anyone ever has the luxury of working with family, um, it can really be a blessing. It's so easy.
Yes, I mean, I'm smiling thinking about it because I can see what you mean. Like she's the one person, either one of them that can, think like you, know what you like, understand. They were raised at your knee, probably listening to you discuss the business their whole lives. So it's a shorthand between the two of you almost, you know what I mean?
It
It's like,
sort of is. And they also get my vibe.
mm-hmm.
So, So yeah, especially my older daughter, because like I said, she worked for 5 years. So the new one just graduated from Parsons in Paris,
Hmm,
and she's very artistic and in fact helping me with the fabric collection. So I'm really enjoying working with her on that.
that's nice.
My oldest daughter was much more business sort of oriented, so that
Okay.
was very helpful too. But luckily, I have a good team in place, and one of my designers been with me for quite a while, and she really can do a lot too. So she's sort of my other right-hand person. And she was a friend of my daughter, strangely. So
Nice. How
yeah,
big is
so
your
I've known
team,
her.
Michelle? How many people do you have, and what sorts of positions do they hold and help you do?
So we have two designers that are working with us now. I have my daughter who does PR, and all. I also have a PR team, and then I have Olivia that manages the showroom, and I have a new guy that's starting that is going to start doing some social media stuff, and then I have the warehouse manager.
Nice.
So
It's
it's a pretty tight team, yeah.
nice, very nice. So one of the other things that I thought was interesting, and of course, you're not, I'm not saying that there's no one doing it anymore, but when I look through your website and the publications and the different press that you have, you do beautiful, intricate design that still employs draperies and layers and tassels and pillows and accoutrement. You know what I mean? And it's just, I was like, oh gosh. I mean, I love the clean mid-century look. Don't get me wrong. It's gorgeous. It's sleek. And, it's hard to do. I think sleek can be as hard to do because, not enough is just not enough. And, you know what I mean? There's a fine line between you didn't
Right.
finish and that's sleek. But I mean, do you find that is that just it's so personal to you because you have such a worldly view that you attract that design and that's the design that you like despite the fact that the whole trend is to the clean? What is your feeling on all that?
Well, I've always been a maximalist. So I lived in Rome for quite a while with my husband when we were young. And on one side of me lived Valentino, on the other side, Franco Zeffirelli and Mongiardino did both of their homes. So
Some
it
heritage
was pretty
there, huh?
special. So I was very inspired by Mongiardino at a pretty young age. And I also have a set design background, as does he. So that is very inspirational to me. I also live part of the year between Mexico and Switzerland. I mean, I have homes in both.
Mm.
So, and I have jobs in both. So, depending on, how much work I have in one or the other, I'll spend more time. But I will say that, I'm a maximalist and I always have been. And there's this sort of new movement where people talk about maximalism. And in a way, I like it and in a way I don't because it's just something I've always done. And I think it's more of an old-fashioned kind of decorating sort of idea
Mhm.
about the home. And I've always said more is more. I think I've been quoted in El Decor maybe in 2007 saying more is more, less is never more, less is obviously less. And it just is. I mean, less is less. I'm sorry. So I can do that, and I have done that, but it is not what I really thrive on personally. But of course, it's very actually easy for me to do that. I find it very easy. I think what's hard to do is create a layered environment that reflects people's personalities and, looks still elegant.
Mm.
So that's what I enjoy. But I come from a set design background. So really, every new project and every new challenge is exciting for me because it's like doing a film or a stage production in that, you recreate that moment
Mm. Well, and that's the thing
for
about the
people.
design. When I look through your portfolio, it's in every snapshot of an angle that you look at, you're seeing a whole, like you said, a layer of something that creates a story as opposed to just, a table that's empty. It's like the accessories and the layers. And I look at your portfolio and I think, wow, where did that piece come from? She probably traveled and picked that up in that country and stuff. And it
Well,
really is,
thank you.
yeah, it also
Well,
too.
one thing that you don't see when you're looking at that too is that I've really enmesh the client's personal style into these homes.
Mm,
So, I really try to talk to them and find out what their loves are and what they really respond to emotionally. So it's really not just only about me.
right.
It's really about them feeling really at home in that space. And so a lot of those things sometimes are very personal to them.
Hmm.
And I think that's really important. And I think sometimes today in homes, it really sort of looks like the decorator just left. And I really want it to feel like the family just arrived. I want it to
Mm.
feel like they live there and it's an evolving, living, breathing place. And that's what I feel like home is. And so really it's about home.
That's a nice way
It's not
to
about a
describe
house.
it, Michelle. Not that the decorator left, that the family arrived. That's really
Yeah.
that's pretty profound statement because it really does speak to your philosophy, and I think that it's awesome because, you know, it doesn't mean that you didn't find the peace on the other side of the world, but when you saw the peace, it reminded you of a conversation with that family member or that the homeowner or something, and you thought, this is, you know, the connection to her, and so it's awesome. I think it's really beautiful, and it reminds me. I come from old school. Our business started in the early '80s, and so I remember when we used to layer draperies and put tassels and trimmings and everything. So I was sort of looking at your website, and I was like, wow, yeah, I remember that. So.
Well, and you know what? We still I use a lot of decorative tape. I just did a
Hmm.
talk at Samuel and Son, and we talked about this. And I think they asked me in House Beautiful recently about my ideas with, passementerie. And I still use tape. I don't use a lot of tassels, but
Hmm.
I love tape, and I'll
Hmm.
use it almost on every drapery treatment in some way or another. And I just think, it's another layer of beauty that can be created. And, also honestly, my clients like it.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know. It's just something I still do on a sofa here and there. And yeah, so I'm still doing it. And I think that all of that is going to eventually come back. I think there's going to be some back push eventually to this very modern. I think
Mm.
it's very important to mix some modern in.
Hmm.
But I also think, as far as our business model goes, you know, what we really are is selling products. So why limit yourself?
Right. 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 And so tell us a little bit about that. So you, at this point, your store, your showroom is, 10,000 square feet, right? I mean, that's a huge space.
It seems huge, except I'm in Texas. Let's remember that. So yeah, we have this big place. Um, yeah, and it's actually been a lot of fun, and I use it sort of as a laboratory, and it's always changing and evolving. And then I have another 10,000 square feet where sort of, things come in and go out. And so yeah, it's been really good. I
That's a
really enjoy it.
And that's what I was trying to, I guess, draw out or allude to in the top of the conversation is that, when someone has an interior design platform that's as accomplished and as broad and as detailed of the projects and the level of the projects that you do, and then you think about managing two physical properties that are 20,000 square feet between the two of them and all of the product that goes in and out, it's sort of a little overwhelming to think about it. But for you, and the thing is, at this point, I gotta believe that you love to have the showroom still because you don't probably need to have it any longer, but you probably love to have it. Is that correct? I mean, the to
You
run it.
know, I probably don't need it, but I really find so much joy in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I love just sort of, poking around in it. And I sell a lot of things to clients out of it, but I have to say I do not sell the majority of my clients out of my showroom because, maybe that didn't work. But quite a bit of product will come from here, obviously. And I really also love interfacing with other designers when they come in. And really, my real true passion is sort of traveling and purchasing things and working with these artisans around the world and helping them sort of use the same technique, but maybe modernize it.
Mm.
And so if I didn't have the showroom, I really wouldn't have the excuse to do that anymore.
So
And
it's sort of like a shoe
it's really what
fetish.
I,
It's like you like to
it's
buy
sort of,
shoes, if you like to buy the product, so you have to have a place to sell it, right?
I think that's sort of it. And really, honestly, if I never took another interior design job, it wouldn't be a problem because I have the showroom. You know what
Right.
I'm
So
saying? Like it sort of runs itself in a
right,
way.
right. Very interesting. I
So
think it's cool. It's very interesting. So I meant to ask you about your interior design projects as well, Michelle. Are you strictly a turnkey interior design project, or are you, you could do just like a living room or a bedroom, or do you just do full on projects? I'm not sure of your model.
I pretty much only do full on
Hmm.
projects. But working with clients who I've worked with for sometimes, 15 or 20 years, I will sometimes go back, of course, and, redo a room or help them with their children a little bit here and there. But normally we only take on full houses pretty much.
Right. I find that to be the bigger the platform, the more that becomes
Mm-hmm.
the model. So this reminds me of a particular designer that I've worked with here in New Jersey, Michelle. She's probably 89 years old now, but I've worked with her on and on for 30 years. And I remember in the beginning when I first met her and I was doing a couple projects with her, and she was probably, I guess, already in her 60s at that point, right? And I wanted to recommend somebody to her. And I say, oh, please call this designer. She does fabulous work. And I get a phone call from her and she says to me, thank you so much for referring me, Luann. But at this point in my career, after being a designer for 40 years, the only projects I take on are my own previous clients that I've worked with or their children. I take no new clients at this point. And it's funny because you just mentioned how, okay, so my business model is that I do full on interiors, but if my own previous client or their children need a little different, I'll do it for them. So you get to a point where, you have some loyalty to previous clients, but, you have a model too that you want to go for, right?
Absolutely. And, with previous clients, I find that I'll just, I do so much for them and still do as much as, we'll go over and do all of the Christmas for them. Or one of my clients had George Bush to dinner recently and asked me if I would help her set the table for that. So I did the whole table and picked all the china and, did all of that. So it becomes very much, that I'm sort of part of the family.
Wow.
And so, but would I do that for someone else? Never.
Right.
But yes, for these people that I've worked with for all these years, I just adore them, and I've done their daughters' dorm rooms, if you can believe that.
Right.
But I've also done, but at the same time, I've done maybe 4 houses for them.
Right,
So.
exactly right. You're not exactly calling Michelle Nussbaumer out of the newspaper and saying, "Can you decorate a dorm room for me?"
But I've done it. That is so funny.
That is funny. Oh, so give me some thoughts on designers that are listening to you that are possibly in the first, stages of their career, and maybe they are just coming out of school and thinking, what should they do? How should they get into the field? And what, when you look back on your career and think about advice that you either would give or was given and was significant to you.
Well, this is a question I'm asked a lot, and especially as I've been on this, book tour and speaking, and so there's always a Q&A, and it seems like this question comes up every time. So I'd like to say this, that I think, and I tell young people this, and I've had so many young people work for me as interns and then gone ahead and hired them. And one of the girls ran my showroom for 8 years. That was my intern, started out as. And I think that it's so important that these young girls or guys or whoever they are work for someone that is maybe known in the business, that has good connections with shelter magazines, and that you admire their work. So, because, you are going to pick up part of that aesthetic. So if you hate the person's aesthetic, don't go there. I mean, go what you love, look for who you love, it's their aesthetic, and try your best to get a job there, because really you will learn so much from them. And someone told me this very early in my career, and I never followed that advice. And I think that things would have moved much more rapidly for me had I done that, and, wouldn't have made maybe the mistakes that I made along the way as a young designer myself. So I think it's great advice, and I think everyone should work for someone else. And all these young people that think I can just start off on my own and do this, they can't. Let me just tell you.
Well,
you can't.
and they can't
really
with competency. And, like you said, sure, anybody can struggle through anything that they put their mind to. But if you go and work for somebody else, then you learn so much and you cut the curve, right? You cut the learning curve.
Absolutely. And, a lot of these young people that start working for me, they are so much better on CAD or I don't know, whatever new things we're using. But, they can't necessarily figure out scale. They can't figure out, I'll have to say to them, when they're young and new, okay, did you measure the door? Are you sure that fits through there? I mean, things like that, you have to have someone.
Hello, let's start with the basics. Can it get in the elevator, right?
Exactly.
I know. It's true. And how about advice in the sense of once maybe you have hired an intern, they've passed your interview process and they've made an impression on you. Talk to somebody who's in that first position, the ways that they can be valuable to you and the ways they can differentiate themselves and the ways they can show you that they're serious and make you want to pay attention and think about moving them from intern to employee. Any work ethic things or that you admire and you look for when you hire interns?
Well, I probably shouldn't say this. It might not be PC, but I have to tell you, every intern I've ever had or ever hired from the Midwest, these kids are hard workers. I don't know what they do to these kids in the Midwest, but I mean, they are hard workers.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's like they're from some other time period or something. But yeah, just someone who actually shows up at work on time, first of all, because I feel like also a lot of these younger people, there's sort of an entitlement in their generation in general, I find. So just people that show up on time and pay attention and do what they're asked and have a good attitude. And luckily, I've had some great interns. I've had some that haven't been great, but I've hired a lot of them, and they've been amazing. And you can just tell when you have someone working for you if they're smart and they get it and they take an extra initiative, and they can quickly rise up the ladder. Yeah.
Yes, I think that anybody underestimates that the person that they're working for is taking in everything that they do. What I always say is, I know what you're doing, whether I tell you I know what you're doing or not. Like, I see what you are doing and what you're not doing, right? And so as the owner of the business, you're noticing those things. And I think that a lot of times, and I don't know that it's generational, honestly. I just feel like that sometimes when you're young, whether you were young in the 60s or you're young in the 2016s, I think sometimes when you're young, you underestimate what you just said, which is show up on time, be interested, take initiative, right? And so I find that I have often asked people, ask me, well, what will make me a good employee? I'm like, seriously, be a grown up, right? Like, come to work ready to work.
No, that's it. Like, if you understand what an install is, you need to understand you might be there till 7 o'clock at night. You might even be there later. And so I don't really want to hear from people, I'm sorry, I have a date with Bob or something. It's like, we're doing an install. Okay. This is a grown up position. So sorry.
Yes.
But, having said that, I understand, because I have young, children and people that are, the same. I understand if they need to go to a wedding or, because all their friends are getting married. You don't want them to miss that. So, we always try to work within that and help people with that. But then when I need them on board, I need them on board. And I want to be fair, and I want to say to them, okay, you want to go to that wedding, of course, but I need you here this day or this evening to do this.
Right.
And, that's just sometimes a learning curve for people to figure out. But then sometimes you get these people that are so gung-ho. You're literally, it's 6 o'clock in the evening and they're still at work.
And you're telling them, go home.
Go home.
Yes, go home, right?
Olivia's like that. Yes. I'm like, you got to go home. Like, go.
Yes. Yes. No, I have had that also. Adriana tends to be like that. She'll be like, I think the first year that she worked for me, honestly, I think I didn't know it, but I finally recognized that I felt like anytime that I was at work after hours, she was at work after hours. And I finally, after like a year, I said to her, are you still working because I'm still working? And she goes, well, I sort of was raised that you don't leave before your boss leaves. I'm like, Adriana, you are going to hate this place soon if you have a rule like that. I said, because
that's hysterical.
And I'm just like, no, sweetie, baby.
No, and you know what? There's so many people that are really dedicated and great, and you can spot it right away, I think.
Right.
I think you can really spot it right away,
Well, and that's what I was sort of wanted to have the conversation a little bit, because I think that it's in you to be responsible and to be a go-getter and to be a person who completes a task, and it can be cultivated, but not if you're just sitting around waiting for someone to notice it one time out of 5 that you've done it. I've more noticed the 5 times you didn't do it. It's like, how about a message
I agree.
Like, how about a
message? I also like to sometimes, if it works out, I also like to have people come kind of do a trial week if they can, and kind of see how that works. Sometimes we'll do that with a younger person, and this is like for showroom help or something like that. But, sometimes that can be a really good way too when you're looking for employees. And I think the other important thing when you're looking for people is ask around, ask other showrooms, ask other designers. If you can get someone who's already worked for someone else, it's always helpful. But I think this is the hardest part of our business, really, is finding the right staff.
I agree.
And I was looking for my project manager a few years ago quit. And I think I looked for, maybe 6 months to replace him.
Yes. It's a
to
tough
just find
thing,
that right fit.
especially when it's a key person in your business, because you can't just jump in and then find out that it's not quite right. And of course, you never really know, but you really do want to take your time and make sure that you've done as much as you can.
Which can be hard.
Yes.
And which can be hard on the other people working for you, because everyone sort of has to, do that job until you find that person. But I think that, finding the right person with the right fit I think it's the hardest part of our business.
Yes. Yeah. I agree.
What do you
I think
think?
it's tough. I do think it is. I think that if your team doesn't gel, I find that it's hard to get through a day without agita. The team has to gel.
Exactly.
And everybody has to pull their weight, and everybody has to respect each
And you
other
know
and
what
get along.
else? It has to be fun too.
Right. Yeah. That's the thing.
We want to have fun. Every day needs to be fun. So we really feel that.
That's great. That's terrific. I love it. I think it's terrific advice. So here's what we're going to do. Hang on for 1 second, and I'm going to tell everybody about Cravat Inc., and then I'm going to ask you about your book. And you mentioned your book tour a couple times, and I want to get into that in a minute. Okay? Hang on, Michelle. Hi, taking a minute here to share my great thanks to the featured sponsor of the podcast, Cravat Inc., and also to tell you about CuratedCravat.com. With the introduction of CuratedCravat.com in 2015, Cravat has truly become the first and the last stop for all things design. At CuratedCravat.com, they maintain an edited collection of the most unique, high-quality finished products across all categories for the home, including furniture, lighting, bedding, rugs, accessories, and so much more. Their comprehensive collection features customized designs as well as unique hand-picked pieces from the global design market. Here's my favorite part. I've been very vocal about this. This is all available exclusively to the trade, to you, the interior designer, through an e-commerce platform. That's right, no direct consumer purchasing. They have your back at Cravat Inc. And I would love to know if you've checked out their innovative ready-to-ship upholstery program. This program features a selection of their most popular cravat frames and fabrics packed for immediate shipment. This is groundbreaking in our industry. Where else can you, as an interior designer, find someone that has your back, trade only, and delivers custom quality furniture fast? I'll tell you where else. Nowhere else. That's where else. Now, designers, you can also shop the site by product category, by stylized product stories, and by the curated rooms designed by industry tastemakers. These same people that we've had on the show, and you've heard them talk about it. Candace Olson, Denise McGahey, Elizabeth Lamont, to name a few. At CuratedCravat.com, they are committed to making your job more efficient by providing unmatched customer service coupled with an exceptional product offering. They stand firm in their mission to serve the interior design trade at the very highest level. Here's another fabulous feature that I love. The process is so simple. Yes, it is. Design, click, deliver. That's it. It's that simple. So head over to CuratedCravat.com. See it for yourself. See all the beautiful things and see how simple it is. And then guess what? When you're ready to check out, you get to take 10% off a single purchase as a listener of this podcast, just for you. Enter CK Podcast, CKPODCAST at the checkout, and you'll get 10% off as a thanks for listening to the podcast. And I want to say thank you, and thanks to Cravat. Okay, so this book of yours, Wanderlust, Interiors That Bring the World Home, it just came out. We're recording in the December of 2016, and this book just came out this previous fall, and you're knee-deep into the book tour right now that you've mentioned a couple of times, and that just sounds like you actually said earlier in the interview, on the plane that you were on yesterday and the plane that you were on this morning. I heard that. I don't know if anybody else heard that, but I'm like, whoa. So
I know. That was tough.
Yeah. So here's what I would love to know, first of all, about the book. Because there's lots of interior designers that are in our, that are listening, and that are colleagues that have beautiful interiors and are accomplished. How does a book like this actually happen, Michelle? Do you reach out to Rizzoli and say, I have an idea for a book, and drive that process, or did they reach out to you because of who you are and your work and your platform?
So I had a great agent that I found from a mutual design friend, and she was amazing. And when I met with her, I said, listen, I want to do this book, and I really only sort of want to have it with two different people, one or the other. And if I can't do that, I sort of don't want to do it. And I said, really, Rizzoli's my number one, choice. So we took it to Rizzoli, and they said, we love it. We want to do it. And so it kind of, started from there. It was an amazing experience. I have to say, making the book was really fun. So yes, so I went with Rizzoli. I have a great editor there, Philip, who I adore. And the book took me 2 years to photograph. And there was some photographs I had that I had to find from different magazines that had already, been published. And so I had to meet with those photographers and get those. And now that I've done a book, I realize the second one will be so much easier, because I will, you sort of know what you need to have in order to do it. So yes, and my husband photographed quite a bit of the travel photography that's in the book. So there's a whole element of me sort of shopping around the world. And he was with me on some of those jobs and times that I was traveling, and he took photography. He took photographs there, and then just had different photographers as well on those trips.
And so explain to us a little bit about the reality of it. So you've just described how you have lots of the photographs from previous work, your husband and your travels and so forth. But when you came and you went to Rizzoli with the book, did you have the concept all laid out in your mind or in physical, or, you just said, I have a body of work and I'd like to create a book, and then you collaborated with the editor at Rizzoli in order to come up with the focus and how it would be laid out?
No, I knew exactly what I wanted.
You
So
did.
I wanted this to I really wanted this book to be different than everyone else's book in a way. And I do so many book signings here that I, see everyone's book and of course buy everyone's book. And there's so many beautiful books. But I felt that there was sort of a missing thing to a lot of these books, and that there's no real personal kind of story there. So my book is a little bit more personal. You see travel photographs, you see vision boards, you see, creative, how I do the creative process a little bit. And then it starts with the first chapter is A House of Mine, and the last chapter is A House of Mine, and all in between are different clients. And so yes, I told them that, and so it's a little bit more layered of a book, I guess, and maybe a little bit more personal, but I really enjoyed doing it. It's been so much fun. And I think a lot of people are doing books now, and I think it's a great tool for your business. I think it's a great calling card. Clients love it. You can show it to people when you're in an interview. It helps with licensing. So I think it's been really good.
So, but the reality is that there's two things that needed to be three things that you had going into it. So I'm relating in case somebody out there is feeling like I've got a book in me of my work. So you want to think about the criteria is that you have to have a body of work, obviously, right? That's number one. Number two is,
well, yeah, I had 30 years of work. In fact,
Right.
my book is 308 pages, and I think I signed the contract for a 280-page book, and my book designer called me and said, this book isn't big enough. I have to edit out so much stuff. It's just, you can't even do it unless you get more pages. So I think I ended up getting 40 more pages or something. And so, yeah.
What is that about? Is that something that costs you more money, or they just make a decision as the publishers to invest in it? I mean, how does that actually work from a business
Exactly.
standpoint?
So you have to kind of work with the publisher, and I don't know if that ever happened to them before. I have no idea how
Mm-hmm.
that works with them every time. So every time I suppose is different, and every book deal is different.
Mm.
And I guess you have to talk to your publisher and see
Mm-hmm.
how that works. But for me, it worked out, and so I got the extra pages, and I'm very happy about that because I didn't want to cut the things we were going to have to cut.
Right. It's like, how could you even decide what to cut out, right?
It was so hard. I mean, it was really hard. And the funny thing is, before I did the book, I remember talking to my book editor and saying, I don't even know, do I really have enough for a book? Or, I just wasn't really sure. And then once I
300
get into it,
pages.
they're like, you have enough for two books. So
Oh,
yeah.
wow. And the whole thing from not idea, you probably had the idea percolating in your head for a while, but from the point that you and your agent, so I was going to say that was the third thing, by the way. So you have to have a body of work, you have to have a concept of what you see, the storyline and the angle and the hook of the book, and then of course the agent was instrumental in probably having Rizzoli answer the telephone, I would think.
Perhaps you can do it without an agent, but my agent that I have is really the best, and she's done almost every book I've ever loved. And so I think that when she takes you on, it's a pretty much done deal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's
hmm
funny that what I just heard, it was interesting because you said advice to young designers is to look to see who is getting published in shelter magazines and has a style that you like and go work for them. And so is that sort of what you just did with your book? Which agent is working with the publisher that you like and doing the types of books that you aspire to do? Is that sort of how you found that agent?
So she works with all the publishers, and
Okay.
that just happened to be that I really wanted Rizzoli
Mm.
and was so fortunate to be able to work with them. But I really love the books she does and all the books she's done, and whether they be with Rizzoli or whoever,
I see.
they're all really pretty books. And then I had a book designer as well that I very much admired what he had done. And when I looked at all these different books, and with her, I said, I love this, I love that. She said, oh, well, that's this designer. So that was the one I chose. His name's Doug Tersh, and he was amazing. And he doesn't do that many books a year, but I was lucky enough to work with him. And so we worked together very closely on laying out the book. And you don't have to do that. You can, Rizzoli does all that for you, but it's just something that I wanted to
Mm.
really, do on my book. So yeah, the book's very personal in many ways, I
Very
guess.
exciting. It's very exciting. And the process from the time that you and Rizzoli make an agreement to go forward, how long is it? Months, years? What's that process? But from hello
Well,
idea to published on the
it
street.
probably should have been about a year, but it took 2 years for me because I was in the middle of a really big project. So I had to kind of stop for a little bit. And then I also had to finish up two projects that were in the book that I really wanted to include.
Mm.
So that just took a little bit longer. But yeah, I met the deadline. I moved the deadline back at one point, I guess. And, but some people have done it in a year, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot going on, so it took me almost 2 years to do it from the beginning when I signed to the end.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so now you're on the book tour. So where have you been recently on your book tour? I know you were just in Charlotte, and where else have you gone? What kinds of things are you learning and finding out? And have you had any ahas from being on the book tour and things that are happening to you in that way?
So so what I've really enjoyed about the book tour is just meeting other designers around the country. So I've been
Mm.
all over the country and just kind of hearing what they're doing and meeting them and personal interaction with them. And yeah, so that's been really fun.
That
I've
is
enjoyed
fun.
that.
That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Yes. So, and before you go,
Yeah.
I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that you actually also design fabric, that you design and have fabricated and specified for your projects. And do you also then, do I understand it correctly, that fabric that you design then becomes a product that other designers can specify for their projects, or do you just do design one-offs for your own projects?
No, no, it's available here at my shop, Ceylon and Company. And it originally started where I was just doing, this fabric for there would be something that I wanted, and I just wanted it to be a little bit more bespoke than what I'd found, or colorways changed or whatever. And so I started doing that and started selling it about 4 years ago, and now have just signed up with another company who's producing it really mass for me. And so it's all going really well. Yeah. And we
Oh.
have all the wing walls in the showroom, and we've sold a lot of it, and it's been so fun. And I realized that I love designing fabric.
Hmm.
I love it.
Now, will it be so if somebody's listening to this program and they're in, New England or they're in London or something, is it online that they can see and they can specify, or you're not going that big yet? You're just keeping it to the local area in Dallas and whatever designers you're interacting with there?
So I just sold a lot of it to Lyford Key, to a house there. So no, it's actually available, and we're in the middle of updating the website and relaunching it. So all the fabric will be on there, and then people can call and ask for swatches. And it's been going really, really well. Yeah.
Very exciting. Do you expect
So I
to
like it.
have it be in showrooms across the country, or going to keep it like just online and at your showroom?
We're really just in the beginning infancy of trying to decide about that. So
Mm.
that's one of the questions we're going to work on in the next couple of weeks.
It's a whole nother
And we
business.
that's another thing we do with our business is we have these sort of like bi-monthly meetings to kind of see where we are and talk about it, and everyone sort of brainstorms, and it's kind of fun.
Mm. Yeah, because that's a whole nother business now. So you probably have to make decisions at each step of the way of does it make sense personnel wise? Does it make sense profit wise? Does it make sense, big dream vision wise? Does it make sense business model wise to keep it, in Dallas and online, or have it placed in a showroom or something like that? You have to make the decisions as you go in order to keep, the reins on things, right?
It's so true. And that's another thing I wanted to make a point of is that I've been on this tour, as I said, and on this speaking sort of, roller coaster, talking around the country to designers and different clubs. And at the end of every talk, there's always, this sort of Q&A thing. And that's one thing that's really come up with almost every single talk is designers like to talk about the business of design. And we're
Mm-hmm.
all asking all these questions. And I have to say, I'm so excited about your podcast because maybe if everyone can start listening to this, I feel like we're all in this sort of like alone in a way. And it's so great when we can get together and sort of, everyone sort of, it's all sort of evolving. And I think our business has changed so much, especially since I've started being a designer, which is about 30 years.
Mm.
And it's just an evolving thing. And so there's such a conversation to be had about the business of design right now. And I recently heard Robert Stillen speak. At a panel discussion, and he had so many great ideas that I learned from him while I was listening. And I just think that's so great that you're sharing all this with everyone. So
Yes,
thank you so
oh,
much.
you're welcome. Thank you. I mean, it has been. It's been really a terrific journey so far of hearing all the different ways that designers organize their personnel and they organize their projects and they, get their things done. I mean, everybody seems to have a system, and I think that's really the biggest message that's coming through from the podcast is that if you are a designer out there and you're not really seeing the profits at the end of the year and you're not really having a smooth, project going through, that it's not because it has to be that way, that it just means take a step back, listen, learn from somebody else, take an idea from somebody else, put it into action in your own firm. Because, if somebody like you, Michelle, can design jewelry, design fabric, design glasses, do interiors, put a book out, run a showroom, run a warehouse, then, it's possible to have systems and employees and things in place in order for these things to happen, right?
It is. But you know what? There's nothing set in stone. And I think it's especially in our business hard for people because there are no real rules in a way. Everyone's sort of making their own as they go along. And even though regionally, people charge a certain way in New York and another way here and another way in Los Angeles or whatever, there's some similarities, but I think that, everyone's trying to figure out, is this the best way to do it? And so shows like yours and talks like this, I think, are so helpful to everybody.
Yes, I agree. Thank you. So I have to tell you, you've taken a lot of your time with us today, and I really do appreciate it. I'm a big fan of the things that you produce and the things that you create, Michelle. You really are doing some beautiful work, and I encourage everybody to check out your book, Wanderlust: Interiors That Bring the World Home. Look at your website. I'm sure at some point my involvement in my podcast is going to bring me to the Dallas area, and I really look forward to meeting you and seeing that showroom of yours. That's got to be something else down there.
Well, I hope you come sooner rather than later, Luann. We'd love that.
Thank you. Well, I really thank you. Before you go, just tell everybody, how do they see your product and see your your showroom and find your book?
So you can buy the book on Amazon or through my own website, which is CeylonAcompagnie.com, CeylonEtcie.com. And my fabrics will be up on the website. The jewelry's on the website now, but the new launch for the website, I think, is a month and a half out. And so I hope everyone will look at it then.
Okay. I think it's funny that you mentioned that you're doing a new launch on the website, because I was going to say to you off air, but I'll say it on there now for people, because some of the pages aren't working. And now I understand why, because you're in transition. So when you go to Michelle's website, just hang in and go back a month from now is what you're saying, right?
Thank you so much. Yes, because I have a new host, and somehow the code or all of these things that I don't really understand what it is, but some code's been lost or something with the new people. I have no idea.
Yes.
But it's going to be a beautiful website and all shoppable online. So I'm
awesome.
Really looking forward to it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much. Thanks for coming today, Michelle.
Thanks so much, Luann. It was so much fun.
Wow, what a fun conversation with this incredible #smart lady. Am I right? There are a couple of things to unwrap here. First of all, let's remember how important it is to have systems in your business in order to make things happen and flow naturally. Right? We have to have the regimentation in place so things can flow naturally, right? And as you heard, Michelle has a very busy lifestyle, yet she always makes sure to stay on track with the different things that she has to do to keep her business moving while she's moving and hopping from plane to plane. She also said something that I loved. Whenever you finish a project, it shouldn't feel like the designer just left, but the family just arrived. I mean, what a beautiful way to see it. And I have to say, I love that sentiment. And I know we keep hearing this, less is more. And for some, this is valid and a worthwhile pursuit, right? But for Michelle, it isn't the case. It's not her. She's a declared and proud maximalist. For her, less is always less and never more. And I think we can all agree that Michelle is a trendsetter, not a trend chaser, and that is what makes her successful business owner and designer. And I'd like to thank her for joining me way back in the day. And as you can see, I truly enjoyed my conversation with her. And I hope that you enjoyed listening to it again, or if it was the first time, that you enjoyed it as well. Now, we're getting close to Christmas and New Year and Hanukkah and all the things. So I hope that you're staying safe and enjoying what's left of 2022. All right? Thank you so much for joining me today. Decide to be excellent. Thank you for joining me today. This podcast is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. If you want to know more about me, my books, or Luann University, go to luannnigara.com. And if you are interested in having WindowWorks help you with your next window treatment or awning project in the New York, New Jersey metro area, go to windowworksnj.com to learn more. Have an excellent day.